Hey everyone, Peter here. Welcome back to my channel and thanks for tuning in. Now in this video, we'll be going over how to suspend your Spider-Man figures a little more creatively using inexpensive household items instead of dynamic stands or clamps. Now it's worth mentioning that this quick and easy figure hack primarily works if you have some kind of display cabinet or bookcase, but hey, feel free to get even more creative with your figures if they're displayed out in the open. Now as you can see here, I had Tech Suit Spidey hanging out in a hammock, and all I did was tie a few strands of self-made webbing to the metal frame of my Detolf. Now don't worry, we'll be going over how to create the web lines momentarily, but I just wanted to share a closer look at the hammock in case anyone wanted to replicate it for themselves. And so for the hammock itself, all it takes is a thin sheet of plastic wrap to hold them up. I just chose to cut out a few holes to give it a slightly more weathered appearance. Now, believe me when I say that this was a very quick do-it-yourself type of project, so you can definitely make it look a lot cleaner if you simply put in the time. Now here we've got Homemade Suit Spidey in a web swing whip, and similarly, I just tied a web line to the upper bar of the metal frame. Now when it comes to the hands, depending on the pose you go with, you can either tie a web line directly to the wrist peg underneath the web shooting hand, or you can tie it to his gripping palms, whichever you prefer. Alright, and so to create the web lines, all you need is some clear, thin plastic wrap that's normally used on food. Mine's just a generic brand, but you may also know it as saran wrap or cling wrap. Additionally, you'll need a pair of scissors just to remove any loose threads that protrude out of the tied knots. And for the iconic Staten Island fairy pose, we'll need the fists that also have small slits or openings for the web lines. Now, you can ignore this next part since it's entirely irrelevant to our end goal. I have this uncontrollable urge to mess with my figures when they're in my hands, so I just put them in a casual pose and lean them up against the wall for the time being. Now to create the web lines, all you gotta do is just pull about 2 inches worth of plastic wrap over the edge of the box, or about 5 centimeters if you use the metric system. Slice off a sheet of plastic, then twist and twirl until it becomes a thin web line. Now of course, dental floss or white string can get the job done too. However, I prefer using plastic wrap like this for a couple reasons. First, as you can see here, it's pretty translucent, but also reflective and bounces light, which makes it look more akin to webbing. And secondly, it's very elastic, but still remains durable when it's stretched out. So it's nice to have that immediate flexibility since we won't know the exact measurements or distance of the metal frame to Spidey's hands. And so once you've created your web line, simply wrap it around the metal frame of your display case and tie a knot like you would with your shoelaces. Now although one knot can suffice, it's probably better to double knot it just to prevent it from sliding around the frame. Then use the scissors to cut off any remaining threads, and follow the same process for as many web lines as you need. Now one of the nice things about this pose that a lot of collectors might seek comfort in knowing is that it puts very little stress on the suit. Specifically, his joints won't be severely bent in a dynamic pose, so because there's no risk of creases or wrinkles, you're in the safe zone. Now, funny enough, while filming this video, I did not take into consideration the lack of space because the shelf above was lowered to fit Thanos, so I had to hijack the larger spot that Deadpool and Colossus were originally in. It's all good though, they only moved over one spot. And so once again, simply tie 8 or 9 web lines to all the bars of the metal frame, then we can work on the details of the figure, like switching out his eyes to the squinting ones. Now, this prying tool that I'm using is the same one from my Mark 50 posing video, and these can be purchased in various quantities online for like a few bucks. Links are down below if you need them. In any case, once the correct eyes are attached, you can remove the hands if you haven't already done so, but we don't want to attach the fists just yet. Instead, we'll want to slide them onto the web lines first, so it'll be much easier to tie your knots without having to balance a dangling figure in the process. And so, all we gotta do here is tie one big knot, or a double knot, below the hand so it'll function as a stopping point. If it manages to hang in place, then we'll just do the same with the other one. And in case the web line is too thick to be inserted into the hand, simply twirl it up, then sharpen it out using your fingernail. Voila! And so once both hands are secured to the web lines, it's finally time to bring in the figure. Simply attach Spidey to his hands and let him hang out to see if your webbing is sturdy and secure. If so, then we can begin making some final adjustments, like how high off the ground he'll be. Now, if you want him suspended pretty high, you'll want to shorten the distance of webbing between his hands and the metal frame. And to do so, simply detach the figure from his hands, tie new knots at the desired measurements, then put him back on. Once that's done, simply tie the remaining web lines to the gripping areas above and below the hands. And in case your web line isn't long enough, you can just pull to stretch it out until it reaches the desired length. Also, once you've tied all the web lines together, be sure to straighten them out to imply the amount of tension on the webbing. We don't want to have any slack since he's supposed to be holding an entire fairy together. Then, simply cut off any loose threads, but feel free to leave at least one loose thread on the bottom of each hand to signify the end of his web line. And there you have it, the iconic pose from the Staten Island fairy scene. Now that's pretty much it for this figure hack video, and I really hope you found this information useful. I know many collectors who own Tech Suit Spidey, Iron Spider, and even Scarlet Spider are generally concerned about damaging the suits, whether it's from dynamic poses or display clamps. So I thought I'd just share a fun and inexpensive way to pose your Spider-Man figures a little more creatively and without the need of a dynamic stand. Now if you haven't already, you can check out my Mark 50 posing video where we cover 9 different poses and some important safety tips. Now, my War Machine Mark IV recently arrived, but because there's a lot of posing similarities to the Mark 50, I might push his posing video to a later episode. However, I recently kit bashed an Agent Smith since I didn't want to wait for Hot Toys to make one, so you can definitely expect a Neo vs Agent Smith video sometime in the future. And lastly, the Justice League Batman just came out in Hong Kong, so I'll either dedicate a full posing episode to him, or perhaps a showcase video with the rest of the league when Superman arrives. Now, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.